Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy, the host with the most, the sensational 30 Spray J. And tonight is episode one, debut of the Sleighwalker sessions. We are here tonight to uncover and unpeel the layers of the man that we know from the beard community, the Tactical Santa. Who was he before the beard, the J's, and the mission that he is today? We're going to dig deep, so stay with us every Sunday. Not every Sunday, but one Sunday a month. We're going to uncover these stories from the beginning to the end. Where are we now with the Tactical Santa? And I'm going to bring him on right now. Hello, Tactical Santa.
What's
Thank you
going
for
on,
coming.
Jay? What's happening?
So let's start right here. Who was Tactical Santa before the mission that we have today of the beard community and the tacticalness that you have today?
Well, how far do you want to go back, Jay? How far do you want to go back?
We are going all the way back. You carry yourself like a man who's been through hell and back. So, what was life like growing up?
Well, growing up, my family owned a restaurant, so there was a lot of hard work, right? So, right off the bat, at a young age, I had a good work ethic put into me. Okay, my dad is old school. He's from the old country. He's from Greece, so very very old school type mentality. Okay, so I grew up as a single child. Um,
Oh,
so by the time I was, 10, 11 years old, most kids were going on summer vacation. I was at the restaurant working. So at a young age, I was working. Work ethic, always got to put in, that's the family business. We got to work, we got to work, we got to work. No excuses. You got to be here. So going through life at a young age, the work ethic was there. I was always around. I got to meet a lot of different people, right, at a young age, because I got a lot of people coming in the restaurant. I got to meet a lot of different type of people. Um, I got to meet some celebrities in my parents' restaurant. I live in Rochester, Michigan, home of Madonna.
oh
So
wow.
Madonna used to come into the restaurant at a young age. So I met her before she exploded on the scene and got big. So I met a lot of different people where I'm at, a lot of really, really influential type people with big three. Where I'm at, just north of me, the town that's north of me is big money. Okay, so big money people out there, so a lot of executives. So I had a lot of people that I would see and notice and see how they talk and how they do things from, some celebrity type stuff to executives, big dollar type people. So growing up, I was around that. I got to pretty much understand how people operate, you know, seeing how different classes of people are and what they do. So basically at a young age growing up like that, that was my main influence is everything in the restaurant, right? So two doors down from the restaurant was the local fire department, the volunteer fire department. So when I was growing up, I'm like, you know what? I'd always see the fire engines go and stuff like that. I'm like, you know what? When I'm old enough, I want to do that. So in high school, um, I didn't play foot. I played football like 2 years. I didn't really like it. I was into physical stuff. I got into wrestling. I really liked the aspect of hand to hand. It wasn't hand to hand combat, but you're out there and it's just you. It's not a team. You've got to prove yourself. So I wrestled 3 years in high school. I liked the physicality of that. Um, But I was like, you know what? When I get out of high school, once I graduate, once I'm 18, I'm going to join the volunteer fire department because it just seemed like a challenge, right? So up to that
Hold
point,
on.
yep.
Hold on. What kind of people were around you during that time? Were they building you up or were they breaking you down?
In high school,
Yes.
um, High school to me was kind of a weird thing. I blended in with everybody. Um, I've always been that kind of guy that's a chameleon, right? Like, I don't care in high school if I was hanging out with preps to say, or what we used to call burnouts or jocks or nerds or whatever. I can blend in with anybody, you know? So I hung out with a lot of different people. The one thing that from an early age, when I was in high school, I was one of the bigger dudes in high school, right? Um, I didn't like bullies. So I never really put up with guys picking on the smaller kids or picking on them for being, you get a lot of jocks. When I was growing up, they picked on the nerds, stuff like that. I'm like, that's not acceptable. Like, you're not going to do that. I always stuck up for them. Um, just no need to do that. I was one of those guys who are like, well, if you want to pick on them, come pick on me. I got big shoulders and we can have some fun. I really at a young age, the other thing was, is at a young age, I enjoyed physicality. I didn't mind fighting. I liked fighting. When I was growing up, my dad had a background in some military stuff in Greece, and he always, my dad didn't beat me, but he was toughing me up and preparing me for when I got older, right? So physicality to me was no thing. I didn't have a problem with that. If, I was that type of guy that, oh, you want to fight? We can do this. I'm not scared. I'm not going to back down. It was just mentality, and I just didn't like to see people get picked on, especially, you know, you get some guy who's got 40, 50, 60 pounds on a smaller guy. Like, really, what are you proving? Like, you're going to pick on the small guy. Let's do this. Let's be equal and see what goes on. So in high school, I didn't have a lot of enemies because, like I said, I was a chameleon. I blended in with everybody. I could get along with everybody, but I was also that guy that if I saw you being bad to people, I'm gonna stand up and tell you you're bad. You're being a bad person. Like, it's not acceptable. We're not gonna. I'm not gonna allow it. You know. Yeah.
Um, was that? Would you say with the bullies and not putting up with the bullies? Was that the
Mhm.
breaking point that made you say enough is enough? I'm going to become a protector.
So I don't know if that was the point. It was just was. It wasn't the point that forced me into becoming a protector. It was that point of me just saying it's not right. At that moment of time in my life, it was just like, listen, if this kid can't defend himself, I'm not going to let you beat on this kid because he can't defend himself.
But I believe that
Sure.
you were becoming a protector even before you
Sure.
yourself didn't know that you were going to be a protector.
Sure, sure. I just don't think that was what finally pushed me to say that's where I wanna go for a living, you know what I
Okay.
mean? Um, Once I got through out of high school, so in high school, school kinda bored me. I'm sure there's a lot of people you talk to them that when you're in high school, it bores you. I didn't really push myself. It was very easy. I'm really back in those days, I was really good at test taking. I didn't have to study a lot, so things came easy when it came to school. I never pushed myself. It was to me, it was kind of boring. Um, when I got out of school, I was like, okay, um, let me get on the fire department. So I got in the fire department, the volunteer fire department. Then I went to community college, and I decided, I'm going to go for what they call a fire science degree at the time. So I went through. I got a lot of hands-on training. I went through Fire 1 and Fire 2, went through Fire Officer 1, 2, and 3, became an EMT, so I was running medicals and I was running fires, but the big problem that I had was, at that time, do you remember a movie called, Backdraft?
Yes.
Okay. That movie Backdraft, it came out and everybody and their brother wanted to become a firefighter. So, what I wanted to do became oversaturated. And it was extremely hard to find full-time work. I tried, and every time I went and applied, I get the tests, and it would come back that I was overqualified for position of firefighter. So I was getting every time overqualified, 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 and that was also during the time where they were trying to get more women in the fire service. So I was getting overqualified, and well, we're looking to hire females. So yeah. So my dreams and aspirations were gone because you would have one position open up and 500 people would apply. So it was not going anywhere with that. So I kind of stalled out. I was like, man, what am I going to do? You know?
Was that so? Being overqualified,
Mhm.
not knowing exactly which direction you were going to go in life. Was
Right.
there a specific moment when you realized that you needed to change your direction, or did life keep
So,
throwing punches until you had to hit back?
well, it kept throwing punches. So, I'm young, I'm physical, so I'm like, well, right after I got out of high school too, I decided, because I was physical and I was doing the fire department stuff too. I'm like, you know what? To make extra money, because I mean, I wasn't making a ton of money at the restaurant, right? So I wasn't making a ton of money working there. So I'm like, well, I should probably bouncing sounds like a fun idea. Why don't I go bounce at nightclubs, right? Well, the hookup I had, I couldn't get a job in Detroit because I didn't have really any hookups there, but the hookup I did have, I knew a guy. He was one of the lead guys over in Canada, just across the border in Windsor, and he was part of the crew that ran all the strip clubs. So I got in with his crew. So I was working strip clubs when I was 18 over in Canada. I was bouncing. So I started bouncing there, and once again, it's a physical job, right? And if you like to fight, um, there's plenty of opportunity, right? So you kind of hone your skills in because you've got to be really good at doing that and getting people out. And if stuff happens, you've got to be able to solve problems very quick. You got to think on your toes. But the other thing it does for you, it heightens your situational awareness when you're working doing stuff like that because you start to understand body language, you start to understand facial expressions, um, learning to watch the eyes and the hands, and trying to figure out what's going to happen before it happens. Because if you can stop stuff before it happens, that's always a bonus, right? Because you don't want it to lead to a big altercation. So if you can stop it before it happens, it's always key. So you get a lot of skill set working in places like that because now you're really watching people and you're watching people at their worst, right? Because it's involving alcohol, right? So they're getting drunk, and now they're getting drunk, drinking, um, probably doing cocaine, and so now they're out of their minds. And now you mix in naked women because in Canada it was not topless, it was full nude, right? So now you've got alcohol, drugs, and women involved. Guys do stupid things. So you've got to be able to watch that. You have to be a wolf. You have to be able to pick things out and stop it before it happens, you know? Um, and you can't be afraid. You can't be afraid to get involved in stuff. Um, it was nothing back in the day working at some of these places where it'd be like 5 of us bouncers against 15, 16 guys. You've got to be able to turn that switch on and just not be flashy. It's not like the movies, right? So when you fight as a bouncer in a nightclub, you're trying to get them out, but if it turns to fighting, it's all about smash mouth, trucking people fast, not trying to be flashy, no flashy moves. Um, I used to get asked all the time, how do you win a fight? Winning a fight's very easy. All you have to do is deliver a lot of pain really quick to make somebody stop. So if you can do that, that's how you end these fights. So I got a lot of experience delivering pain very fast and making people quit fights. So I was doing that. Um, like I said, the fire department wasn't going anywhere. So I started building my reputation up as a bouncer, you know. Guys I used to hang around at that age, they're like, oh my gosh, this guy, he's 18, 19 years old. He's already bouncing at strip clubs. So I had a little bit of a reputation then, you know.
After that,
Mhm.
what was the first thing that you learned that changed how you saw yourself and the world?
Uh, the problem is, I think sometimes when you become self-aware, right? Sometimes ego, and you got to be really careful about ego, right? Because I'm 19, 20 years old at the time. I'm big, I'm strong. I was working out all the time. I'm big, I'm strong, and I'm fast, and I'm young, so I'm not hurt, right? I'm not an old guy with injuries, right? I'm not hurt physically. I can do stuff. The problem is when you become self-aware, and this is where the ego comes in. It becomes a problem. It's a double-edged sword, right? You have to have confidence, right? But I mean, I used to walk into rooms, um, hanging out with people or going out places, and the first thing I'm doing is looking in the room and trying to figure out if there's anybody that's a challenge. And I look at myself and be like, nope, everybody in here is a victim. I could take everybody. It's not a problem. And it's really fast and easy, right? So you start thinking like that. And that sometimes that's a positive thing because you have to have this confidence, right? But at other points, you can't you cannot start believing your own hype and buying into that, right? You have to know when to draw it back, reel it in, right? And some guys can't do that, you know. So that was one point where you kind of become self-aware and you understand the skill sets you have. And that was just me at that point learning the stuff, working in strip clubs, right? So I at that point, I hadn't honed in the skills. Now I'm kinda like the raw version of Tactical Santa, right? Because I'm not polished yet. I know just enough to be dangerous, right? But at that point,
I
and
don't
being
think
that
there was
young.
any Santa there.
Right, no, no, no. That guy was the guy that he enjoyed. He enjoyed what he was doing.
Right.
He loved fighting, and he just didn't have a
Well,
problem.
that was a little Krampus right there, Santa.
Probably a whole lot of Krampus in that.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it got worse later down the road though. So,
Okay.
um, so
So
mhm,
let's get to that. Let's get to the breaking point. Let's get to the
right,
point that enough of these strip clubs and
right,
the beating of any man in that room. When was
mhm.
it that you went from being the badass to wanting to be a protector?
So, I think it was always ingrained in me. So, I mean, I come from people look at me and tell me, "Hey," and I've always done this since I was young. "Oh, you're a Greek guy." "No, I'm a Spartan." From a young age, I always fought like my dad was like, "You're Greek, but you're a Spartan." So I always had that mindset, right? So the inner protector, I think, was always there. I just didn't know. I didn't realize what I needed to do, right? So I'm working these. I mean, obviously, there's no 401k, there's no health benefits, and there's no retirement staying in strip clubs or working at nightclubs, right? So you would have thought Tactical Santa would learn that at a young age, but the problem is you get wrapped up in all the fun, right? Well, it reached a point I'm sitting there and I'm like, I gotta do something. I got hired at a different club and I started working stateside and it wasn't a strip club, it was just a regular nightclub, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, there's gotta be more to this. Like I was so good at picking up on people and like watching like in a crowd, picking out movement and watching people and understanding what was gonna happen and understanding the flow of things. I'm like, there has to be something better for me to do, because you kind of feel at one time you're like, man, I'm kind of wasting my talent, right? Like, why am I here? I mean, I was getting paid decent, don't get me wrong, but you're always like, why am I here? What am I doing? You know? And you keep questioning yourself that. And I cannot remember where I saw it. I actually thought it was a joke. Um, Somebody brought it up to me about a school that you could go to and become a bodyguard. And I thought it was a joke. I'm like, what do you mean there's a school? Like, what do? Go in there, and you fight a
Well,
couple guys or something. Um,
everybody's seen that movie with Whitney Houston, and then
right, right, right. So, but, you know, I thought it was a joke when I heard about this school, right? So I didn't think much of it at first.
but once you realized and found out that it was real, what
Right.
drove you to enroll into the school? Was it anger? Was it purpose?
It
pain,
was
or all three?
I think it was a little bit of all, but the main thing that I thought it would do for me is that if I could go to this school because I looked it up, did some research, and the school I'm talking about is called Executive Security International, and it is the number one school in the world if you want to become what is called a certified protection specialist. So behind my name legally, I can put CPS. That's my legal title. Layman's term is bodyguard, but certified protection specialist is a professional bodyguard. So I did some research. I'm like, well, if I'm going to do this, I want to go to the best place in the world. Did some research and was like, at the time, we're talking, this is in 1999, and tuition for this school, and there is no like going to a college, a community college. There's no Sally Mae or anything like this. Tuition is you got to pay up front, and the tuition was $10,000 to go to it. Now it's $10,000 for the school. Um, you do the home study. You have 1 year to do the home study. So there's like 12 courses I had to take. I had to do this, send in the paperwork, all the tests and all that. Um, and then you go out to Aspen, Colorado for 2 weeks for the hands-on training. So now your airfare, your hotel, your food, your all this stuff. So all said and done, you're right about $14,000, $15,000, right? So I was like, well, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna get serious about it. You know what I mean? And I'm going to go. So the next move is I gotta hustle and make money. So I was working a lot of hours at nightclubs, at the bar. I think at the bar I was working at that point, um, 6 nights a week, and I was working at my parents' restaurant 7 days. So I was burning at both ends because I needed to get this tuition up to do this. It's one of those things that just hit you. You're like, you know what? I need to go do this. This is what I need to do. So that's why I decided to do it, you know?
So the mission unfolds.
Yes.
Your mission was starting to
Mhm.
become a protector.
Right.
After years of all this hard work, this dirty scum that these stories we haven't even breaking into the layers yet. There's so many stories that happen at these nightclubs, strip clubs. Drunken stories are always the best. Ladies
Right.
and gentlemen, we're gonna get into all of that in all these episodes. Right now, we're just peeling back the small parts of the layers. When you
Right.
started and you finally got the funds,
Mhm.
how did this training as a protection specialist transform you? Not just physically, but
Sure.
mentally and spiritually.
So mentally, so I finished all the schoolwork on time, got it in. They're like, okay, you can come out on this date. Because at the time they were only offering 2 dates a year to come out and get training, to do your 2 weeks training. So I lucked out. I got it in it was end of spring, just starting of summer. So Aspen was off season. So that was pretty good because I got a really cheap rate on the airfare and the hotels, everything was cheap rate. But I went out there and you learn from, so every instructor out there was either former Secret Service and high level Secret Service guys and tier one operators,
Uh-huh.
spec ops guys. So the caliber of people that are training you is amazing, right? Uh,
Yeah.
really learning all the tricks, like learning how to use your mind and what you need to be looking for, and logistically, because everybody sits there and be like, okay, how hard can it be to be a bodyguard? All you got to do is stand by somebody, walk them around, right? There is so much work that goes into stuff, logistics. um if you are going somewhere and you're the lead man, you may go out somewhere a week or 2 weeks before the detail comes, and you've got to write down escape routes. You've got to do all the hotel maps. You've got to do maps of, okay, if we're driving down here, something happens. Here's an escape route here, an escape route there. You got to have plan A, B, C, and D. So there's a lot of pre-planning in the business. It's a lot of mental, it's a lot of knowing what to look out for because at the end of the day, Uh, Dead clients don't pay money. And if you ever get a dead client, you'll never work in the industry again. So it really transformed my mental about how I look at things and how I think about things, right? Um, it's funny because I always get told like, you're always looking at this, you're always scanning, you're always thinking about this, this, and this. I'm like a Boy Scout, right? I have to be because when I'm protecting somebody, I have to have everything I need because I'd rather have it and not need it and not have it, right? I used to get asked all the time, why are you thinking three or four different escape routes? Because if I need a fifth, I need a fifth. You know what I mean? I have to have all this information. I need to know what I'm doing. If this plan goes south, I need to know that I have options because the worst time to try to think about options or having a different plan is when it goes down, right? Because that's just chaos. In chaos, you'll never make good decisions. So you have to pre-plan and all this logistics you have to do, because I look at people and be like, oh, I'm like, you know, basically a bodyguard is a paid bullet trap, right? That's kind of the joke because if I'm on, if anything happens, I'm the guy that's supposed to take the bullet, right? So we kind of an industry thing is we always call each other, the bullet trap. I'm the guy that's supposed to take the bullet, but you hope that never happens. But so, like I said, I went there. It made my mind very sharp. It made me look at things a lot differently. It made me look at things, what could be dangerous, because when you're dealing with people that are trying to kill people, they don't play by rules and they will use anything to their advantage. And the bodyguard is always at disadvantage because we're the ones waiting for the surprise, right? The bad guy already has the plan. We're sitting there hoping that we pre-planned enough, and we're the ones that's going to get the surprise sprung on us, right? So that's why it's always constantly thinking about things that can happen, escape routes, how I can get away from this. What do I do if this happens? What do I do if that happens? So there's a lot of mental to being, you know. I mean, one of the things I used to do, I had a client one time, and I was working for her just for 2 weeks, right? And I looked at her, and we were driving to certain places because she'd have to go to do things. I'm like, all right, and we would stay nights at hotels because it was a traveling thing, right? I looked at her. I said, "Give me a list of what hair shampoo you wear, all this stuff, everything that you use in a daily." She goes, "Why?" I'm like, "Because I'm going to buy extra." She goes, "Why?" I'm like, "Because if you think that we're going to stop and I'm going to take you into a store so you can go shopping, that's not happening. I'm going to have everything you need. So if you lose something, I've already got it. It doesn't waste time. It doesn't put us in a predicament." Because she had not one, but she had four bad stalkers. So I'm at that point, I'm controlling the environment, right? I've got
Sounds
everything you
like my
need,
20s.
right? I've got everything you need. That way we don't have to make unnecessary stops because I can control the environment by not allowing us to stop. So I've got extra of everything you need. Everything that's on that you put on this list, I have extra. We don't stop anywhere. We're going to stick to the plan. That way it doesn't have opportunity for one of these stalkers to come out and do something. So always being mentally prepared and being able to pre-plan is what it's all about.
I love that you broke it down. It's not like the movies. It's not just
Right.
in the moment of when everything's going to happen.
Right.
Now, we already know you were a strong guy. We already know you're a mental guy.
Hmm.
When did that really bring into the spirit, spiritually, of
Right.
the protector, of
Right.
going from just the badass to the
Right.
Santa?
Spiritually, I think what it does to you is when you come out of that school and like listen, like they don't just pass people there, okay? There's a lot of stuff you have to go through, and it's a big accomplishment once you pass that school, okay? When I passed the school, I actually passed with honors. Okay, I graduated in the top of my class. I took it very serious. Some people didn't. I did. I took it very serious, but it empowers you because you're the good guy. You know what I mean? Spiritually, like I'm the guy that's trying to keep people alive. I'm the good guy. You know what I mean? So spiritually, it gives you a good feeling because you're protecting people that can't protect themselves. You're keeping people safe. You are trying to keep people alive, trying to keep them away from bad incidences happening. So spiritually, it makes you feel good because you feel like you're on the right side, right? You're doing good work. You're not doing bad work. You're doing good work. I'll never forget the last day when we did the graduation. Um, the owner, the head guy of the school, which his name was Bob Dugan, he wanted to talk to each and every one of us privately. And one of the things that he said, he goes, "Listen," he goes, "you're either going to make a really good bodyguard or you're going to become a hitman." He goes, "I'm just going to let you know this, that if you go to the other side, there is checks and balances to this. We know who you are." So, yeah. So you got to remember, being trained as a bodyguard, you get trained to have the mindset of how would a bad guy do things, right? Because you have to know this. You have to know how the other side thinks because they're the ones that are going to try to come after you. So you have to be able to put yourself in the shoes and going, well, if I was coming after this person, where am I going to hit them? Where's the best opportunity? What am I going to use? What are we going to do? So there's a lot of information that you learn. So, but makes you feel good when
So
you know you're working for good.
starting to work for good, getting that red cap, going from the naughty list to the nice list.
Mhm.
When did you go from being a protector to becoming the protector?
So after I graduated the school, the next step is I'm like, you know what, I gotta separate myself. Once again, there's different shades of separation, right? So I had the bodyguard credentials, but I'm like, um, there's another school I need to go to, and I know to go get my executive protection driving school in. So I went to the Bondurant driving school in Phoenix, Arizona, and took the executive protection driving school because I'm at that point, I've got all the credentials. I got the best credentials in the world, but I have no experience on job. Okay. So I'm like, I need to get me something that will make me more lucrative, make people say, hey, I want to hire this guy. So I went to that school and I got the executive protection driver certification. I went through that school. Graduated with I believe it was a 4.0 because they did it pretty much the same grading scale as school does. So I went through the driving school. So now after I do that, and that school is probably the most fun I've ever had at a school. Um, Driving.
What during all this training, was there ever a moment where you questioned if you were really built for this life?
So the funniest thing that happened to me was actually at bodyguard school. So before I went to bodyguard school, um, I never shot handguns. Never shot a gun. Never shot gun before. I was told that I would need to bring a firearm and I needed 5,000 rounds of ammo. So I went to the range like one or two times. I'm like, well, Glock feels good, and I guess the Glock 40 cal. There we go. No problem. So I bought a Glock 40 cal. I bought a Glock 22, which is full size 40 cal. I got a holster. Because they give you an equipment list. This is what you need to bring. This is what you have to have for the school. So I brought it. Um, we run a whole week of shooting. Okay. So the first stage of shooting is they put a paper plate out roughly about 7 feet away. And they tell you, okay, so what you need to do is you're going to load 10 rounds in your magazine and you've got to get 10 hits on target to move to the next, right? Now, to preface this, all the instructors are there. They run through everything that's expected for you to graduate from this class. So they run all the shooting drills, right? And you're like, okay, whatever. I haven't really shot before, but I'm like, how hard can this be, right? It can't be that hard. I've watched TV. I've seen TV. I've watched it can't be hard to shoot, right? So first magazine, put it in. All right, I go, and out of 10 rounds, I think I hit three on paper. So I'm like, okay, all right, typical newbie and typical excuse that every newbie gets when they're shooting. They're like, oh, it must be the gun. Must be the gun.
Yeah, and the little dog from Duck Hunt is up there laughing at you.
Right, right. No, it's worse than that because they've got a salty old guy that's working on the range, and he's an instructor, firearms instructor there, and, so I do that, and he looks, he goes, "Ah, that's pretty good, son, that's pretty good." I'm like, "Whatever." So, I load up another magazine, I shoot, I think I get 3, and he's like, "Ah, you're doing good. You're doing good, son. You're doing good," right? So now, not only do I suck, but I've got this old guy making fun of me, right? So now the stress level's starting to build, right? Because I know how I'm supposed to perform to graduate. I mean, this is the first step. I can't do this, right? So I think after the 5th time, I can't do it right, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I've wasted all this money, I'm gonna fail, I can't shoot," and this guy's making fun of me still. He's like, "Son, that's good job, that's good, that's good." I'm like, I look at him like, "Can you come here?" He goes, "What?" I'm like, "Why are you telling me it's a good job?" He goes, "If you give me 10 minutes," he goes, "the great thing is you've never shot before." I'm like, "Well, how can you tell?" And he goes, "Nope, you never shot before." He goes, "If you give me 10 minutes and listen to me, I'm gonna teach you how to shoot and you won't have a problem." So, I had no attitude, I have no ego at this place because 'cause I'm like a sponge at this time, I wanna learn everything, right? So, he took me aside, my grip was all screwed up, I wasn't looking down the sights properly, got me all squared away, and the next thing you know, man, I am, like, just on target, hitting everything. So, made it through that, but that was probably the funniest thing is that's where I, like, almost had an anxiety attack at bodyguard school, so I'm like, "I can't do this." But luckily, he took me aside and he got me straightened away. And the shooting portion of that school was no joke. No joke at all. The stuff that we had to do, the movements, we had to do, there was a steel plate challenge where it was 5 steel plates representing a bad guy. You had to, and we had to wear suit coats. We had to wear suits when we were at the school, right? So suit coats have to defeat the suit coat, get in, get on target. You had to shoot 2 targets, drop to a knee, shoot 2 more, pop back up, and shoot the last one. So you got 5 targets, okay? Steel plate, you had to do this in 2.5 seconds to pass. So you're 5 shots, but you have to go from standing to knee, back up top. You can't just go bang, 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 5 shots. You have to movement, right? So that was one of them, and that one, yeah, that one was something else, but everything we had to do, another funny moment was I had 3 Navy SEALs in my class. They had GI money. They had the GI Bill, so they were all getting out, and they were just coming there to get paper, right? They're just collecting paper, um, just because they were gonna transfer into the civilian side, so they were just coming to get paper, but, so they look at myself, and I had my other guy that I went there with, that I actually became friends with, his name was Brett. And, so we have to do, so you guys probably all watched John Wick, you've seen room clearing before, right? So, how people room clear, how SWAT teams room clear, so we learn how to room clear, but, so they get us all decked out, we all got paintball guns, right? So, we get told, "Alright, myself and Brett, we're gonna work this time together, we're acting as a team, we're gonna go in, we gotta flush out the bad guys, take care of neutralize the threat," right? Well, what they don't tell us is the 3 Navy SEALs are in the kill house playing bad guys, right? So, you know, when we get into room clearing, slow is fast. It takes a lot of precision, it takes a lot of focus, and being slow is how you win that game, right? So we're thinking we're doing really good. We come through first room, we're cutting the pie, we get in there, we're doing really good, doing everything. All of a sudden, man, we get lit up like no tomorrow. Like just paintballs everywhere on us, right? I'm like, man, so, yeah, it was something else, man, and then all of a sudden, these guys come out, I'm like, "Oh, that's," like, "this is the first time I'm room clearing, really room clearing, you send the 3 Navy SEALs in after us, like, these guys are pros, right? I mean, they should be there teaching the class, right? So, it was kind of funny, I got lit up by all these guys, but I learned a lot from those guys too because, that was one of the unique things in my class was that we had 3 SEALs in there, and watching how those guys move and how they communicate, I learned a lot from those guys. Um, I got to talking to those guys, they were really cool. They showed me a lot of stuff, how to properly move the feet, how you really cut the pie and the angles and certain other things that you need to be looking for, not just bad guys, but certain things that could be, noisemakers or stuff put in your way to alert them to where you're going to be at. So I learned a lot from those guys. But probably the funniest thing that happened was we had an Army Ranger in the class, right? So imagine we're staying at this hotel and it has a pool. And this Army Ranger, like the whole week, is picking on the smallest seal, right? So we're sitting there, and finally the smallest seal, he just had enough of this guy. He goes, "You want to go?" And the guy's like, "Yep, let's go." So the seal pops off his shirt, hops in the pool. He's like, "All right, come on." And this ranger starts taking his stuff off. I'm like, "Hey man, what are you doing?" He goes, "I'm going in the pool." I'm like, "Can you hold your breath for 4 minutes?" He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Because if you can't, he's going to drown you in there. You're done, right? They don't call them seals for nothing, right? Like if you go in that pool, you're not coming out." So that was probably one of the funniest things that happened at bodyguard school. I was dying laughing. I'm like, "Man, this guy's going to go in there. He's going to get, he's going to get, drowned. He's going to drown in the pool. The seal's going to drown him." But I learned a lot from those guys. It was a fun time. Yep.
Now, if you could speak to the man before the school and everything that you learned, what would you say to him now?
Uh, you know, Probably I would have told him to stay the course more, stay the path. My biggest problem is I could have made a lot of money doing what I did, but I let my preferences get in the way. So I didn't want to work for executives. I didn't want to work for corporate type people. I did it a little bit, but I wanted to work. I had this dream of going on the road and working for rock stars, right? Rock stars, entertainers, and if I could go back, I would tell myself those type of
Hold
jobs
on,
don't.
this just in. There's a quick question. How
Mhm.
long was the school in the class?
So it was 1 year homeschool. There was 12 different courses I had to take, and then I was 14 days, 2 weeks. You actually go out to Aspen. You spend the first week training, all the bookwork type stuff, all that kind of stuff, and then the last week is a whole week shooting. We shot 5,000 rounds that week, so you're getting reps in. You're shooting, 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 and then you got to pass. So you have to pass the first portion, which is all the written stuff, all the lectures and all that, and then you've got to pass the shooting portion. And if you don't pass, there is no, okay, come back and do this over again for free. Like if you don't pass, you're fitting the bill again.
Yeah.
So there, it was high pressure to do this. Yeah. And now I believe last time I looked at it, inflation has really gone up on that school. To
Yeah.
take the course that I went through, it's 30,000 now.
Wow.
So I guess I was lucky that I got it in at 10,000. Yep.
Okay, so back to
Right.
if you could speak to the man before the school,
Right.
what would you say to him now?
I would tell him not to. Okay, everybody wants to live their dream, right?
Stay the course.
Stay the course. Money is money, whether you're working for corporate or you're working for rock stars, right? But corporate money is more reliable and dependable, right? Um, if I would have went the route of working for more executives and really specialized in executives and not trying to go the rock star route and the entertainment celebrity, I would probably be retired right now and living pretty good. Because there was lots of money to be made when I was doing it. I couldn't see myself working. I wanted all the high profile stuff. I wanted to work high profile. I wanted to work celebrities, entertainers, but if I could go back, I would have told myself that the best route would have been, because here's the honest thing, celebrities and entertainers are very stressful. Okay. Corporate stuff is usually pretty easy, lower threat than a lot of the celebrity entertainment stuff, especially when I was on the job, because you had a lot of stalkers, right? Lots of stalkers doing crazy stuff. But I would have definitely told myself, stick to the course, go do executives. Don't worry about trying to do high profile entertainers and celebrities. The steady work is always with the executives and the corporate type stuff.
All right. And everyone that's just coming in, thank you for joining us at the first ever episode of the Sleighwalker Confessions. We're peeling back the layers of the Tactical Santa, where he began to where he is now. You know him as the sleigh walking, Jay wearing Tactical Santa of the bearded community. We've gone into the story of how it all started, from the building up from his childhood and working at a restaurant 7 days a week to going into the bodyguard school, right? Bodyguard
Mhm.
school.
Yep. Yep.
So, in all this time, for the people watching who feel like they are just lost and trying to stay that course, like you once
Hmm.
did,
Hmm.
what's the first move that they need to make now?
You know, you just got to realize that sometimes your brain knows better than your heart, right? Um, a wise man once told me if it doesn't work on paper, it will never work in the real world, right? Um, Sometimes you have to be honest and real with yourself, right? Um, Now, that being said, did I have some amazing experiences working with celebrities and entertainers? Sure, I did. That I would have never had working with, you know, corporate style people or executives. But there's a give and take, right? I mean, I've got so many awesome stories that's cool, but at the end of the day, the awesome stories, they don't pay my bills, right? So it's kind of one of those things. I will never tell anybody, I'm never a soul crusher to anybody. Follow your dream, but at some point you have to be real about your dream too, right? Like, I hate to say it, but like I should have known back in the day, I should have got in where I fit in. I kept chasing a dream that I should have known wasn't going to happen. I mean, I kept going and kept going and kept going, trying to do a certain thing. And at some point, I should have been like, you know what? Let me get back to reality because I'm getting older, right? Because time is a factor, especially in that type of work. Time is an issue, right? So you've only got so many years where you're going to be like top the game, right? I should have went into doing what would have been steady work and paid really well instead of kept chasing the dream, because a lot of it was here's the carrot and I kept chasing it. I kept chasing it. I never got that carrot, but I kept chasing it. So you have to be realistic about your dreams and if they're accomplishable or not, you know.
And then you always say the movement started with me.
Hmm.
What's this movement and where is it heading next?
I just I'm one of those type of guys where I just like uniting people. So you've probably noticed this with probably within the beard community already, right? I'm that guy that's really good at connecting people, right? So if you tell me, "Hey, I'm looking for somebody, I need to find somebody that's this." I probably know somebody that's that, and I'm good at connecting people. And the movement is just everybody trying I just want to unite everybody. You've seen the movement, you've seen the tactical Santa order, we've got Elf Team 6, that kind of thing. I'm one of those people where I want everybody to feel like they can be part of something, right? Because growing up, there was always like cliques that I was like, okay, they don't accept me. They won't let me be part of them because I'm not this or I'm not that, right? I'm one of them guys, man. I'm equal opportunity, man. Come with me, roll with me. If you're day one, if you're day one with me, because my one saying is number one from day one, right? That's one of my attitude is that like I'm one from day one, man. I am the tactical Santa. I am the original tactical Santa. I've got love for everybody. I want everybody to be part of the movement because we're all stronger together, right? Nobody's an island, right? Nobody's an island. If somebody ever looks at you and says, I can do everything, they're lying. They're lying to you. You're always stronger when you have a strong network of people who are like-minded and wanna accomplish goals together. So that's my vision for that. And, it doesn't matter if it's with the movement, it's not even about beer world, right? It's beer world, it's firearms, it's wrestling world. I don't care what part of life you come from, what walk of life you're in. You are always welcome in the Tactical Santa Order. You're always welcome. You're welcome to join. Let's all just be cool with each other and see where we can all go, because what a lot of people don't realize is it's always better when you can raise people up, right? Like, one of my things was always, when I would train people to do bodyguard stuff and to be bouncers, I trained tons of bouncers. And I always used to tell them, as a teacher, right, I want you to be better than me. Because if you're better than me, I did my job. I did my job well. I want you to be better. Because if you're the next generation, right, I need you to be better than me. Because if I'm giving you all this information, you should be able to take it and run with it and be better than me. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with saying that. I mean, I used to get guys look at me and be like, how can you want people to be better than you? I'm like, why wouldn't I? If I can get you to a point where you're better than me, that means I'm a really good teacher and I did my job. So I have no shame in that. I try to make people better than me. I try to help everybody out. That's just my outlook and that's how I look on things, you know?
Sam, I learned so much from you in the small amount of time that we have been friends, and I think I learned everything, learned something from you, yeah, every day. If not a lesson to be learned, at least the humbleness and humility of making sure that you reach out to somebody and see how they're doing in that day. Um, so this has been a pleasure for me just to learn more about you. I love the stories that you tell, not just stories, but the life that you've had and is still leading. So I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Everybody that's watching, we're going to dig even more into the Sleighwalker. There's plenty of celebrity stories to be told, there's pictures to be seen. The man that you see today with the long beard has not always been the long beard, not always been this small of a guy. That right there is your tactical Santa in his early ages with Corey Taylor. That's the lead singer of Slipknot. And
Mhm.
that's who Tactical Santa was. What's the one thing right now that we're going to leave with a little bit of a closing mic drop?
Sure.
What's the one thing that this world still doesn't understand about Tactical Santa and his movement?
I think the one thing they don't understand is because here's the thing. You hear about people trying to do stuff like this, and you always assume that the person's got an ego or they're out of control, right? There is no ego with me. Um, I had a life-changing thing happen to me 2 years ago. I thank God every day that I'm here. You guys have probably heard this before. I had, open heart surgery. I had 5 bypasses. I had the widowmaker. Um, there is no ego with me or attitude. Um, like I said, my intentions are very, very clear and very. There's no ill will with my intentions. I don't have no ulterior motives with what I do. Um, I'm that guy you can reach out with, but if you want to rock with me and you want to roll with me, I'd love to have you. The Tactical Santa Order is there for everybody. Um, that's just how I am. Um, you know, all of us, if you heard stories from me back in the day, um, some of them aren't so good, Jay. There's a lot of bad stuff that,
Of course.
I did back in the day, but everybody, you learn and you learn, right? And you change and people can change. So, I just to me, it's just uniting people, getting them all together and saying, "Hey, it doesn't matter what's going on. You can be part of this because I don't judge, man. I don't judge at all. I don't
Right.
care." Yep. Looks like we have our favorite friend in the chat.
This guy is everywhere.
Yeah,
So
this one
far,
right
you
here.
have chosen honor with humility, take the vow.
Yeah.
Well, there's one thing I can agree with whoever this maker is you do have humility and you do have
Hmm.
honor.
Hmm.
So we have just began. This is just the debuts of the Sleighwalker sessions. Stay tuned in coming months for deeper stories, deeper meanings, and even more motivational movements with your boy, the Tactical Santa, and the host with the most, 30 Spray J.
Well, I gotta tell you, Jay, it's been an honor being on here. It was funny when you brought this, and everybody out there, you got to give 30 Spray J a lot of credit for this because 30 Spray J is the one that made this happen. Um, he looked at me one day and he goes, you need to do another show. And I'm like, man, another show. I'm like, I'm already doing 3 shows. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, every time a celebrity's brought up, it's like you connect the dots. You have an experience with them. I said, well, here's the deal. I said, I'll do the show, but you're going to produce it. You've got to do all the background work. I'm just going to show up and be a guest. So I got to give you credit, man. Absolutely
Dino,
love it.
not so much a subliminal gun to the head, but Dino will take you out of your comfortability, your box per se, and say, "Hey, you're going to be great for this."
Right.
Um, I'm not much of a show my face type of guy, but I'm slowly coming out of the shell like the Ninja Turtles. You're starting to smell what I have to cook.
There we go.
Sensational. We are coming.
Yes, we are. And you're doing a fantastic job. And
Thank you. Thank you.
Tactical Santa would tell you this. And from an early age, I learned this. If you stay in your comfort zone, you never grow. And
True.
sometimes you have to have somebody push you out of your comfort zone because here's the thing, I've learned some people don't know what kind of greatness they have with themselves because they can't see it. And sometimes it takes somebody outside the box to let them know just how great they can be. I've had that happen to me. Um, I was very appreciative. Um, because if you don't have somebody there looking at you going, I can take you out of your comfort zone and I can show you you're going to be better, then you're always going to be stuck in that comfort zone. And my hat's off to you, Jay, because you have come a long way in the past couple months, and you're doing
Thank you.
fantastic, Jay.
So,
I could not ask for a better host of the Tactical Santa Chronicles or the Sleighwalker, whatever we're calling it. I could not ask for anybody better. Thank you, and I applaud you, Jay.
so tonight, guys, I'm gonna leave you with a little quote that I followed for most of the years of my life. A vision without action is merely a dream. Action, it's the grind, it's the hustle, and it's the persistence. So, to follow your dreams, you got to keep chasing. But like Tactical Santa would say, stay on the path. Good night, everybody.